I've got to manage myself, I've got to manage my mind. The task is not easy, but to higher heights I climb.
I'm determined to succeed, so no excuses, please. If you don't want success in life, then don't hinder me.
Michael Lee Parker here, and we are here tonight for another exciting show here on COTV Live. I hope this show finds you in a good place. And listen, we're going to talk about something that builds on what we talked about last week. We talked about helping you to talk, but tonight we're talking about building your C-suite. Now, some of you may have heard me say a little bit about this in the past, but tonight we're going to talk more about this. And this is very important. It is very critical because in life, you know that we always talk about the fact that we are CEOs. We are the executive of our life, the executive of our thoughts, the executive of our emotions, the executive of the decisions that we make that will either lead us to success or lead us to challenges in life. We always have committed to tell everyone around the world that you are a CEO because you run the business of you, and everyone can take charge of their personal success. But did you know that every CEO has a C-suite? And even when you start off as a CEO, I can tell you from going through many different journeys as an entrepreneur that oftentimes you have to do many different roles yourself. You have to be a little bit of everything to make sure that the job gets done. But as you begin to mature as a CEO, I want you to really catch that, mature as a CEO, then you begin to find people that you can begin to surround yourself with, and you begin to build a team that can support you in your leadership. Well, we have to think this way at a deeper level as CEOs of our life. So let's talk about this a little bit. So when you hear the word C in C-suite, the C stands for chief, and normally this is an executive in the company, so a chief executive. So when you hear someone talk about the C-suite, normally these are titles that all begin with chief. And that's because these people have exhibited leadership at some level. They're able to actually make decisions. They're able to have vision. They're able to give direction. So there's something that they've arrived at that allowed them to wear that title. Now, this is very important, right? Because even when we think about in our own life, so before you can even be the chief executive officer of yourself, you have to mature, you have to grow, and you have to learn how to lead. You have to learn how to lead yourself, right? We deal with this all the time. We have to lead ourselves with our health. We have to lead ourselves with our money. We have to lead ourselves with how we manage life and time. We have to lead ourselves with critical decisions we make that impact our families. And so when we get more mature and responsible, we truly become a chief executive officer of ourselves. But another key element of a true CEO is to recognize leadership in other people. We're going to talk about this a little bit tonight, but I want you to catch that. To recognize leadership in other people, you need to understand that this is a job that you have as a CEO. We talk about you are a CEO a lot. We really build up the individual and make it clear that we have to be the CEO of our life. But tonight, I want you to understand that a true CEO has to recognize the greatness in other people. They have to recognize what other people can do. And when you're not good at that, you limit yourself as a CEO. You limit your own success by not being able to see the success that's in others. And if you're not open to that, if you're not willing to open your hand, no one can put anything into your hand that can cause you to grow and cause you to develop. So let's think about these C terms, right? So as you can see here, there are so many C titles in different companies around the world, right? Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Operations Officer, Chief Business Officer, Chief Information Systems Officer, Chief Information Technology Officer, Chief Development Officer, Chief Human Resource Officer, the Chief Financial Officer. We can go on and on. Chief Strategy Officer, Chief Administrative Officer, right? There are so many things that you see here denoted by the imagery you see on the screen. And the truth is, there's so many ways. And again, today, there's so many new titles because business evolves and different things become cool in business, like a chief monetization officer, right? Chief design officers, chief user experience officer. There's so many new things in the age that we're in today. But at the end of the day, we have to put that C on it because we're saying this person is a leader. We're saying that there's something that they've arrived to. And so someone had to recognize what was in that individual and then put them in a position where they could influence the organization and influence the CEO, right? So I want you to consider that for a minute. It's very important. You ever hear this term in business? They call it a steering committee, right? I want you to think about that for a minute. To steer something. And did you know we also, in our lives, need a steering committee sometimes? People who can steer us in the right direction, steer us in the right place, make sure that we're doing the right things. So all of this becomes extremely critical. All right. Now, I want you to consider something here. Now, look at this statement here. This here says that relationships create a pathway, right? So true relationships, they create pathways and different ways for us to open up new doors of opportunity. So I want you to understand this, that every time you build a relationship, and we'll talk more about this later, you create a way that you can travel, a way that you can go. And every place or pathway leads to a destination. It goes somewhere. So if we truly saw relationships that way, we wouldn't just see that as an individual, named John or Mark or Sue or Evelyn. We would see, what is the pathway here? Is there something here that can actually lead me in a direction that is actually adding value to me as a CEO of my life? So very important to understand that. Sometimes relationships are pathways. Now, not every single thing, right? So don't shake just some stranger's hand and say, I wonder what the pathway is here, right? I'm not saying that. But you have to notice that there's some relationships that are clearly a pathway that you need to recognize, because if you don't, you can miss an opportunity to walk in a way that will take you to a destination that's important for you and your growth. All right, here's another element. Relationships create new opportunities. So not only do we want to walk the walk and find the right path, we want something that causes us to ascend, something that causes us to go up, something that causes us to grow up, right? So you have to push yourself, and you have to think about the people that are around you. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is trying to prove that they can go through life without any help, to try to prove that they can go through the life without any advice, to try to believe that everything that you need is solely within you. Now, everything is in you in terms of possibility. Everything is in you in terms of willingness. Everything is in you in terms of the generation of power. We talk about self-empowerment here at You Are a CEO, but you do not know everything. You do not have all experiences, and you do not have access to all things that will help you do the things that you need to do. The realization of that is to understand that relationships can be very critical to opening doors that are important. So new opportunities are created through these relationships in the C-suite as well. All right. So I want you to think about a few things. When we think about all of these different dynamics, when you think about someone that is a leader and you begin to see a CEO that surrounds themselves with other leaders, did you know a true CEO, a good CEO, is coachable? There's someone that can listen to others. So as you can see here on the screen, coaching has so many ingredients in it, right? People that can inspire, develop, help you set goals, teach you to practice the right behaviors, help to grow and develop your abilities. So a true coach is able to bring ability out of others. So did you know you have to understand the people around you that tend to bring abilities out of you? So it's not always something fancy, right? And somebody who's on, promoting some program, sometimes it's a close friend. Sometimes it's a person that have lived longer than you. Sometimes it's a grandmother. Sometimes it's someone that has been down a journey as an entrepreneur that you haven't. Sometimes it's someone who came through great struggle and who can offer real advice about something they've really been through. But you have to be willing to look for those things and look for those opportunities, because coaching, it happens in so many forms. And some of the greatest coaches, I want you to listen to me on this, some of the greatest coaches, they coach without you noticing it. I want you to understand that. Some of the greatest coaches, they're able to coach without you noticing it. So when you're around people or information or access to opportunities and you feel something in you that is challenging you to think different, challenging you to grow, well, there might be a coaching element in that friend or in that relationship or in that contact that you need to recognize. And you don't have to go and ask, well, hey, will you be my coach? You can simply know within yourself that when it comes to certain things, I'm going to really listen to this person about this. They're very, very valuable to me. They add a lot to me. Somebody might manage their time really well, so I'm going to watch that person. How do they do that? Someone might be really good in their discipline regarding how they eat. Some people might be really good with their fitness. Some people might be very dedicated to how they stay organized. Some people might be really good at how they talk to people. Some people might be really good at how they solve problems. So the CEO and the genius of the CEO is to understand and have foresight to recognize the good in other people and the talent in other people. So a CEO has to be a talent assessor, and you have to be able to assess talent around you, because if not, you can be standing by geniuses that can help you in everyday life and you don't even recognize it. You know, this is very, very critical. All right, another thing that sometimes goes with coaching is this word mentoring. So, you know, you see this a lot in the education industry, supporting other teachers, you know, people who teach, people who influence, people who educate, people who guide. And similar to coaches, you know, and sometimes they're used interchangeably, but we have to understand mentorship as well. And there's nothing wrong with having people who mentor, people who can guide, people who can teach, people who can educate. And think about it. You know, life is a university, right? It's not all about the X's and O's. It's not all about all the degrees. I've got a master's degree, and I'm grateful for it, but I've learned some things from everyday people that college could not teach me. I learned some things from people who live things that the books just couldn't give me. And I want to always have the appreciation for that, because that is critical to success. All right. So when you think about the C-suite, right, a lot of times you think about this. You know, a lot of times we see, and there's a lot of generations today now that there's a lot of younger CEOs, tech industry, all kinds of things, and you think about this C-suite that's coming strong and they're suited and booted and ready to go, right? This is kind of what you think. But the C-suite that I'm talking about, it might look more like this, right? So I want you to get a good look at that. And this is just everyday people. You know, having a little coffee, right? And talking. And you'll be surprised sometimes what comes out of that. The ability to recognize that. And this is in so many ways, right? And we have to, as CEOs, we have to be humble enough to recognize different people who can add value to us. And when we do that, we can begin to build a C-suite that has a lot of great power. So when you think about the C-suite, I want you to also keep in mind that there's a lot being done online now, right? So when you think about the mobile phone now, this has also become a C-suite participant, is because now I can get access to so much information. I can get access to people who don't even know me and put them in my C-suite. And in the world of YouTube, you know, it gives us access to so many experts, so many influencers, so much information. And, you know, sometimes, you know, you get so tired of all the ads and all of the requests online, people asking you, you know, subscribe. Don't forget to hit the little bell on my, you know, hey, you see that all the time. But did you know sometimes you need to hit that bell? Sometimes you need to subscribe. There's some people out there that have information that you do need, and we have to recognize people we want to add to our C-suite, even in the social spaces that we are embarked upon online, because some people really can add value. So being able to recognize that. You know, I've seen some people that carry themselves as if they can't learn from other people. And when you do that, you limit yourself, you create a ceiling, you box yourself in, and you become a prison to your own thoughts. So what do we have to do? We have to be willing to open up, connect with others, and see where those opportunities may be. Now, last but not least, I want to leave you with an important statement from Steve Jobs. So we know Steve Jobs is no longer with us, but he did leave a great mark as one of the greatest entrepreneurs the world has ever seen. Steve Jobs said this: "It does not make sense to hire smart people and then tell them what to do. We hire smart people to tell us what to do." Now, this is a very, very powerful statement. Now, don't get it wrong now. Steve Jobs was a strong leader, and don't think this meant he didn't have something he wanted done and he would come in saying this is what's going to happen. He did that. He was a true CEO. He was a designer. He was a visionary, and he was very clear about what he wanted. But he also, when someone pushed back hard enough, when they said things that he knew he needed to consider, he would remember that he needed to have a C-suite that could also guide him as a leader. And this is what we all must do in every area of life. We must have the willingness to let people who are smart in certain areas of life help guide us to grow and make better decisions. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that overview on the C-Suite, and we're going to go a little bit deeper now. You all know in our last show, we had a great talk with Miss LaShawna Jackson. We talked about help me to talk, help me to connect. How do I get out of my bubble and get out there? And all right, all of that was great. I got so much feedback of how you all love that show because it's something we deal with all the time with communication. So guess what? I got her to come back again, and we're going to talk tonight, but from a C-Suite angle, how can we use those same skills to help us build our C-Suite? So, in just a matter of seconds, LaShawna's going to be here in studio, and we're going to go deeper into how we can use those same skills to build our C-Suite. Hello, everyone. I am back here in studio at COTV Live, and as promised, I have Miss LaShawna Jackson back with us. LaShawna, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing good. Now, you know, you're back by popular demand.
Well,
yeah.
What can we say?
Not much we can say, but we talked about helping people talk, and now people wanted you to come back and talk again.
Okay.
So let's talk about this subject of building your C-Suite.
Sure.
So first, you heard the things that I went over. What did you get out of that? What's some of the takeaways that you got? What stuck out to you?
Oh, wow. Well, quite a bit. I mean, that was a really good segment, talking about, first of all, identifying people. First of all, identifying the fact that you need a C-Suite.
Right.
I thought that was vital. And then also identifying people around you that can help you in areas. So who you want to be a part of your C-Suite, whether that's in your life, your career, your money, your family, your health or fitness.
Right.
So I thought that was really good. And then also identifying those individuals once you add them to your C-Suite, who can develop you. I like that you talked about coaching and mentoring.
Right.
And so that's really important to, first of all, admit that you need a mentor. Right. And maybe it's not so much an admission, but more so just knowing that having a mentor is going to help you in your life.
Yeah, and I think more than an admission, because sometimes our pride gets in the way, right?
Sure.
But even just being comfortable comfortable with realizing that we all need people around us that make us better.
Sure.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think, you know, one of the things I had to learn as an entrepreneur is that, you know, it really takes time to learn how to do something.
Sure.
And you might initially, you know, in your own head, everything just seems great.
Right.
And we're often like that with so many things that are in our life until we realize that it's more complicated than we thought. And we need to talk to some people who've done it before.
Sure.
And so I'm sure that, you know, when you think about talking, like we talked about last week, do you feel that this is a very important weapon and tool to be able to build a C-Suite?
Absolutely. In order to talk to, like we said before, once you identify that, you know, we really need the help, whether or not it's in your family or your finances, how to talk to the right people to get the right information. I think that's key. And you also mentioned something about YouTube and you know, so the internet as using, you know, to add people to your C-Suite.
Right.
But you still have to interview those individuals. You know, you could go to a channel and, you know, because out there online, everyone's an expert, right?
Exactly, right.
And so you could go online and find, but it's still an interview. And so you have to be able to look for the right content that's going to add to your C-Suite. But in person, really talking to the right person, and sometimes just simply saying, you know, I've been watching you over a period of time. I love how you know, I see how you're organized. I see how you manage your time. Can you help me?
Yeah. No, that's very well said, LaShawna. And I think, too, that it's almost like realizing that just as a CEO has a process of hiring someone, that you have to have a process of who you're going to allow to be in certain parts of your life to help guide, you know, some areas that you know you need to grow in. And so I think when you actually come to someone, just like last week, I asked you to come and talk about talking to people in different environments because I respect your skill set in that way. So I brought you onto the show to let you say it yourself, right? Because I want to hear from you and let you give what you have. And I think we have to have that ability to be willing to ask. You know, and even when we talk about sales or networking or things we were talking about last week in business, you have to be willing to ask. So what do you think, and how do we use the willingness to ask as a tool to bring people into our C-Suite?
Let's see here. So to use the tool, like you said, you first have to be willing to ask. And again, there is some admission that we need the help. And so when we do that, then we're asking, now we're looking for, I like what you said, interviewing. So you're hiring. So now we are constantly scouting, if you will, right?
Right.
We're looking for the right people that
Right.
have the right potential to
Right.
bring into our C-suite. And we're thinking about the type of questions that we're going to ask them because we have a goal. We have some things that we want to achieve in life. And so
Right.
we're looking for those individuals that could help us reach those goals.
Yeah.
And I like something you mentioned too. I think last week we talked about the option of rerouting sometimes. And I think you said on the
Right.
first segment as well that sometimes whoever's in your C-suite, those are the individuals that guide you
Right.
and that you really value their input in your life no matter the area that you're working on. So I think asking is really critical because doesn't mean that the first person that you ask is going to be the only person in your C-suite, right? So now you can begin to, like I think you said, begin to draw out what the value that they add to you, whether or not it's in your career, in your business. And so you can pull out those ingredients that add to you. And then maybe as you go on in your career, you may begin to look for others in your C-suite to add more value.
Yeah, I love what you said about pulling out ingredients, right? And one thing that I want to, it's almost like when you're cooking, you can put all these ingredients in, but a little salt just kind of brings out the flavor, right? It just it enhances, right? And sometimes I think, we talk about asking. It's not always saying, hey, Lashana, can you help me with my communication skills? That doesn't always have to be the question or the level of ask. The ask could be, Lashana, I have something coming up next week, and I'm going to be going to this event, and I'm trying to think about how to get to a person that can help me with this. Do you have any tips on how I can maybe work that event? So I'm acknowledging you as in my C-suite, but I never told you you were. But I know when it comes to this type of issue, I might need to ask someone like you. So I think that's important too, to recognize I don't have to say, will you be my C-suite? Will you be my coach? Will you be my mentor? I can just situation by situation know the people that I ask.
I really like that, situation by situation, and I like that it's really developing relationships. I like how you said that. And so, you can look at the full gamut of people that are in your life, and depending upon, again, what your goal is and what you're trying to accomplish, it could be your next door neighbor. It could be the coworker that's in another department, but you've been watching a behavior that you have identified that you're lacking. And so I think we talked a little bit about, I think you mentioned about pride. We have to begin to say, okay, I'm lacking in this area. That's okay. But I've identified 3 people that I potentially could help me develop in this area.
And that you said something really critical there, because Lashana, this is the key. I really hope people get this out of this show tonight, is that, that's great that there's different people who are good at certain things, and we could all make a list of all the people we want to learn from, right? But the bigger issue is really not that. The bigger issue is, have you done an inventory on yourself? And are you self-aware of where you're lacking? What good is it to have access to whoever if you don't even know what you need? So step number 1 in building your C-suite is understanding you. Right? Because I can't go build a C-suite based on no goal that is tied to where I'm lacking. So I've got to have the courage to say, I need better communication skills. I'm not good with managing money. I have a problem when it comes to building friendships. I have an issue when it comes to fitness, health, whatever it may be. So I think the recognition of where your gap and where you're lacking is so critical to be able to build that C-suite.
I really like that. And like you said, it's the self-awareness, which we know then leads to self-empowerment. But you gotta have the courage, right, to say, and it's okay because we're always growing, we're always evolving, we're always changing, we're constantly learning. And so when, for myself, I might say, I'm not the best with finances. But I have to be okay with that. I can't, I'm one person, I don't know everything. And that's okay. And I can watch someone and say, gosh, okay, maybe that person, I might not want to budget quite like that, but I might need to. I might need that, that strenuous, kind of that 180 degree change in my life to really get my mind in a certain way, to then have an appreciation for that skill, like you talked about, person by person, to have that skill developed in me to say, I had to acknowledge that I really was lacking that area, but I've been watching you over a period of time, and you do an excellent job with your finances. Would you mind being a coach?
And I love the way that you said that, because sometimes we want to even ask for help with some pride in it, right?
Sure,
I mean,
sure,
it's like,
yeah.
act like you don't need it, but can you
Right,
help me? You know what I mean?
right.
I don't need it, I already know, I already got
Yeah,
it, seen that
no.
before, blah, 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 but
Right.
can you help me how to do this?
Right.
But instead of just saying, hey, I really need some assistance in this, or what's your thought on this? Or
Yeah.
you don't have to, you know, just being willing to do that. And I think it's so important because almost every great team, every great championship team, every great athlete, they all got the discovery, especially in all team sports, that you can't do it by yourself.
Absolutely.
It takes a team.
It takes a team.
And when you think about that, it's no different than in life. We have to think about there's people who have influenced me from the moment I was born.
Sure.
You know, influenced me spiritually, influenced me academically, influenced me, inspired me. And there's things that I watched in other people. There's things people I watched in history, you know, whether it was Dr. King or whoever.
Absolutely.
And you can still see this mentorship in their words,
Sure.
right? Whether I go and read the words, talk to them personally, see a video. But the key is, and what we're talking about tonight, is to actually recognize this as something we have to do on purpose.
Right.
That's what we do. We live, and we say, I like that. I like hearing this person. But you are not conscious that I have a C-suite, and I need to build it and consciously go into this C-suite and pull out the things that I need.
I really like that, to be conscious about what you're doing, and I like what you said about a purpose.
Yeah.
I really, really like that because no matter who you are, whether or not you are a parent, whether or not you are, you know, older, I think you talked about having mature individuals in your life, and even now you just mentioned about, you know, looking back to see who's influenced your life from birth to now.
Right.
Sometimes, I think you mentioned this too, that sometimes individuals, their life really speaks volumes because of just what their life, what they had to endure
So true.
in their life. And so you can't get that. Some of those things you can't get from a textbook.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's really important to be open. I like
Yeah.
that you mentioned that, to be open to, this is what I like about, if I can say it this way, what I like about life is you can constantly learn.
Yes.
You don't have to be a person that becomes stagnant. You can always evolve. You can always change. You can constantly, as we say, strive for excellence.
Right.
But you can really live a life that's striving to always improve yourself and knowing that you don't have all the answers. And then when you get to a certain, point, there's more, because I think you mentioned someone has gone further than you, and someone's more mature than you, and so constantly always changing and just never being satisfied. Always growing.
I love what you're saying, LaShawna, and that's really what I dedicate this show to, Building Your C-Suite. I want to inspire people to grow.
Yes.
People need to grow. We have to be committed to growing. We have to be committed to learning, because when your life is moving, it's just like water. When it's moving, it's a river. When it stagnates, it becomes a reservoir, it becomes a creek, it becomes a swamp, right? And your life can get like that. You don't have time to be depressed when you're growing. You don't have time to be down when you're growing, when you're learning. And there's no one that can stop you from doing that. I can learn every single day. And everyone that's around my life, if I have eyes to see it, I can begin to pull from them. And I want to get people to get a new vision, to recognize what they have access to. Sometimes you're talking to an elderly individual that's been around a long time, you just have a quick comment. But that's a gold mine.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? You're talking to someone that's 70, 80, and you're saying, man, they didn't learn a lot. What can I get out of this moment? But we don't see it that way. When you see someone who's really on top of their fitness, like, man, what can I gain? Like, it was great, we're having a talk, we laugh. But what can I get something out of this? Very, very important. Seize the moment. Carpe diem, we have to seize the moment.
Yes, I was going to say, I actually met a lady that was 106.
What? Really?
Last year, she had a birthday.
Wow.
And I went there and I asked them if they had recorded her, because of what you just said. I was thinking to myself, 106, how did anybody record like everything that she remembers, that to this point that she still remembers? So anyways, they hadn't done that. But my point in saying that was what you said. All of the knowledge that was still available to be able to add to anyone, that you could grow and develop from what she saw. And so like you said, whether it's the grandparent, it's your neighbor, everyone has so much knowledge that if we just, I like what you said, if we just seize the day, seize the moment, seize the opportunity. But I think this is something that's critical. and that is really acknowledge and have an appreciation for what someone has to offer.
That is great, and what they've been through.
Yes.
Absolutely. And so I want to close out on this, LaShawna, and give me some thoughts on this, and we'll leave here because I know we're out of time, but I really enjoyed this talk and what you're sharing and just this discussion. We're kind of having a discussion here tonight. But I love the term, sometimes people say real relationships, right? Not relationships, but real, R-E-A-L relationships, right? And to think about some relationships are real, and you can feel their experience is real, their advice is real, their impact is real. And some people are fake, you know, some people are not, you know, but also just real in terms of the real effect it has on you when you're around that person or that information. And it could be someone online that you don't even know. And it could be somebody, even online, you can kind of click around and say, this person is real. Like, they're coming from a real place. So tell me a little bit about what you think about when I say relationships and why this is critical to an effective C-suite.
I think that real relationships are very critical to a C-suite because it's an authentic relationship.
That's good. Yeah.
I think that those types of relationships, like you said, I think we talked about it last week, it's something that you can feel. You can feel when someone's genuine. You can feel that what they have to offer is coming from a place that they lived it, they bought it, they paid for it, and now they're willing to give it to you. That's another thing, is that when you're building your C-suite, looking for people that's willing to give of themselves to help you and really be able to share what I did well and what I didn't do well. And then, you know, then have the courage and less, you know, on the other side is to have less pride to say, okay, maybe I didn't do those things so well too, or take that information and say, I can learn from that. I don't have to recreate that wheel. They actually were open and transparent and shared and said, this route, now it may not be the same, but this route led here, you know, and so you might want to go another direction to get you to success faster. And so I think that when we're talking about real relationships, again, very authentic, very pure, very substantive. It's something that you can feel. People they know when you're genuine. They know when you care. And I think that's vital too to those relationships in your C-suite. They have to be people that really care about not only your goals and what you're trying to accomplish, but you as a person. They need to be in your corner and be willing to uphold you and help you accomplish who you are, because as you help someone is going to in turn help you.
And if they don't know you and you kind of put them in your C-suite, maybe YouTube or something, you have to know that they care about what they're talking about, that they care about themselves. You still feel it. You still feel it. And so that was a great segment to kind of close out on, LaShawna. I appreciate the relationship that we have to have this discussion. And so, but yeah, I thought this was really effective, just thinking this through. And I want to invite everyone out there, make sure you focus on building that C-suite. Do not let life pass you by. Do not let people pass you by. Recognize the good in other people and get everything you can out of those relationships. And so we have to go, and I want to thank everyone out there that's been a part of this show here tonight. And again, we talked about so many different things, and this was really something that you can take and use right away. So make sure that you do. Make sure you do not waste time stuck in your pride, stuck in your ego. Make sure you're willing to recognize where you need help and where you can grow, and go and get that help. Get it, ask for it, reach out, open up, because that is where growth happens. And you did not get set here on this earth to sit and be the same every day. You're here to grow as an individual. And if you grow, I guarantee you, you'll go further. And so I am Michael E. Parker, and I want you to know of our next show. And LaShawna's going to be right here by my side as I tell you about it. Next week, we're going to talk about self-esteem versus self-respect. Now, this is an important subject, and I want to give you a little hint here. Mr. Terry Fulton's going to be here, one of our senior trainers, and you know when we get together, we start going deep, and so we're going to have some fun on that show. Make sure you don't miss it. So between now and then, I want you to get out there and let the whole world know, and I'm going to let LaShawna again tell the people
that you are a CEO.
All right, good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Have a great evening.
I'm a CEO. You are a CEO.
you.